All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to our low-code bake-off webinar. Today, Craig and Amrith will be comparing and contrasting low-code providers Mendix, Microsoft Power Platform, and the Now platform from ServiceNow. After this presentation, you'll have a better understanding of which provider would be right for your company based on your needs, technology level, and applications. We will be using Mentimeter for a few interactive polling questions throughout the webinar. To participate, simply scan the QR code with your phone's camera on the screen, or you can go to www.menti.com and type in the code on the screen as well. These questions will appear later in our presentation and the code will be displayed again. Before I turn it over to Craig and Amrith, I do want to remind everyone that your cameras are turned off and you are on mute. I will be monitoring the chat function, so please feel free to submit your questions at any point during the presentation. With that said, I will go ahead and turn things over to Craig.
Hey, good day, everyone. How are you? And welcome to the, as Shamiza said, welcome to the low-code bake-off. And for those of you that don't know what bake-off is, it's similar to a hackathon. It gives us better insight into the platforms we use and the tools we use. So we're going to talk a bit about that and the three platforms we chose, kind of why we chose them, and go from there. So the agenda is talk a little bit about before we get there, talk a little bit about the low-code platforms in the future from a Prolific standpoint. The low-code customer journey, Prolific we take our customers on just to kind of get a feel for where they're going, and the customer as well gets a feel for, is that a right fit, and is that the way to go? The platforms we chose, and again, why. Then we have an innovation center at Prolifics, and actually that's how we did the low-code bake-off, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then my colleague Amrith Maldonado will take over and tell us about our bake-off, how we did it, what we developed, and then I'll get into some of the low-code use cases. Next slide, please. All right, so from a low-code platform app dev perspective, we have a slogan at Prolifics, right? We call it vision to value, and that's really taking a customer's vision into something tangible fairly quickly, right? So it gets us there faster. So we thought low code would help us do that, right? So that's kind of what we're doing here, the what and the why for the low code. So what, if you look at the top left-hand corner, is to create innovative applications. I don't know if anyone on the call before is low code's been around for a while. There's been platforms out there that I've used in the past, namely Microsoft LightSwitch. It had a lot of promises, and it was good for small little things, but it really didn't live up to its expectations. It didn't take hold. The newer low-code platforms are simply amazing. You can certainly create innovative applications on parallel to what you're doing with web development now. Application development, same thing. Across all the different devices, right? So creating those innovative applications is certainly a low-code platform plus, there's no doubt. Customer engagement, the second box on the left. Well, customer engagement is important. Why? Because you empower that customer to be part of the development process, right? So they now have an ownership stake in it, and if you can do that, it makes a much better approach and feel for the customer while you're developing these applications. And low code certainly sets itself well for that, because you can literally get feedback within hours or days as you're developing this out. So again, that agile environment, I don't like this, or I like this, and you can continue on or change on the fly. So it engages that customer really well. And third bullet, the efficiency in operating. Just from a low-code perspective, there's already pre-built templates, connectors, abstracted away from that low, traditional low-code. That low type development type person before, where it would take weeks and months to develop something out. These built-in connectors and these templates are already there for you, so that efficiency is already built right in. So again, lends itself well to getting there faster, right? That instant value. Growth of employees, the fourth kind of, we'll call it a rounded rectangle, if you will. The growth of the employees. So Traditionally, you had professional developers, as they term it, and which is, a hardcore developer, a Java developer, maybe a C++ developer, or a C# or .NET developer, that kind of thing. It lends itself directly to you need it specific skill sets. That, again, low code abstracts that away a little bit and brings that up. You still need a little bit of expertise in development, not a whole lot, but a little bit, and you're able to develop applications again quickly and without that knowledge of that low code, or sorry, that really low complex low type of development environment. Yeah, excuse me, everyone. So therefore, you have a much greater employee pool to choose from. So that's the growth employees. So that also lends itself well to instant value much faster, right? Effective workflows. So creating a workflow in the past, as you see in the fifth rectangle there, creating a workflow in the past could be somewhat of a difficult process if you've done that before. And low code allows itself to create workflows almost no code at all, dragging and dropping certain boxes and events as they go through it, and being able to deploy that. So those effective workflows are done much faster, integrating with other applications. Consumes less time, obviously, with templates and connectors and abstracted code. It obviously takes less time to get that development down. Faster development being the next bullet down. Faster development, obviously it's quicker to do that. And the improved client satisfaction, again, ownership the customer has as you're walking through and developing with these low code platforms, these applications as you're building, that client satisfaction is higher because the customer's engaged. Now, all of this, before I didn't believe it either. I'm actually a hard code developer myself. I've been around quite a while, and so that being said, low code allows you to take this and move forward at a much faster pace. I have since adopted that because the applications you can build, the ease of use is much more aligned with today's business and the growth of the business today. On the right side, you'll see why. All those what's go into the why. Again, that customer experience, like I just talked about, the risk and compliance, right? So you have security built in, you have compliance built into these platforms, cost optimization. Obviously, you're driving down costs, and creating that new agile business model, that quick, get it out fast, get it out secure, get it to your customers quicker. Next slide, please. Aligning the business and technology objectives. So pretty much all the right-hand blue, the left-hand blue rectangles, the lower cost, fewer bugs, greater accessibility, increased agility, all those things is what I just talked about. That leads us into the strategic impact of the business, which is probably the biggest reason low code is taken off, right? There's, the optimized customer engagement, the streamlined business operations, to the optimized software and delivery cost and agility through the technology. So business and technology align. So kind of that whole development operations all in one, right? So that's your kind of your strategic impact for the DevOps, if you will. And so some of the things, right? Some of the things that you may have been reading or you come across, things like Gartner and Forrester and Bloomberg, right? So they say low code will account for 65% of application development by 2024, right? So obviously it's growing. 85% of companies using low code tools today say it definitely adds value to their projects. The revenue in low code is supposed to rise again, but I don't know how they predict this, but 187 billion by 2030. Just these are some of the things that, like I said, Gartner and Forrester and Bloomberg are saying. And then one of the keys that we're going to get to is they also say that low code platforms are 10 times faster than traditional development. We kind of found it more along the lines of like maybe a 70% increase, but that's pretty amazing, right? 70%. Go next slide, please. So next slide here is how we at Prolifics perceive our journey with our customers with low code, right? So you'll see the winding highway here, and there's 4 stops. The first stop probably being the most critical, and that's kind of gaining an understanding of pain points as a typical environment, right? You kind of get an understanding of, okay, what business problem am I trying to solve, right? So what are the drivers, the areas of improvement, the pain points that you're having, and so what we do is we take that, we build a kind of a POC around that, right? So, and that's kind of what we did with this low code bake off, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But so that, again, that POC gives them something tangible at the end of it and say, you know what, this is going to work well. What else can we do? Which brings us to the second and third stop, and then to the fourth stop, right? Measuring value. So does this create value for our customer, right, at the end of this journey? And so you're measuring those KPIs and getting an understanding of, yes, this certainly helped, because if you don't measure, it's not really a success. It has to go all the way through. Next slide, please. All right, so this slide is market research, obviously, and this is kind of how and why we chose a little bit about, anyway, why we chose the platforms we did. And the obvious reason, they're a leader in the space, right? So Mendix, Powerapps, and ServiceNow, from a low-code perspective, they are up there. There's others out there, of course. They're, the OutSystems, Salesforce. There's the ones you see on the screen here. But we chose Mendix and Microsoft and ServiceNow, mostly because they're leaders. Secondly, because we have existing partnerships, and we've implemented some solutions for our customers along the lines of this. So that's how we chose it. Yeah. So some of these things. So Mendix is quite an amazing application, platform, I should say, to build applications on. But like some of the things I already talked about, strategic partnership, leveraging our existing relationships. We built some things for customers, that kind of thing. Obviously, a leader, as you saw in the Gartner quadrant there. It's very cost effective. Pretty much, everything you need. We found it somewhat difficult to create custom, complex customizations within it. Not that you have to stay within the bounds of things, but it was a little more difficult. Next slide. And the next one is Powerapps, and again, same kind of thing, from a perspective of engagement with the customer. A lot of them have already utilized Powerapps as a platform, or they're already enterprise ready. They're easy to cross-sell, right? Because you already have that. If you're heavy into Microsoft, you already have possibly a Power Platform environment that you can work with, right? Seamless integration, obviously, to Microsoft tools. A leader, as we just saw. The growth is massive as well. It's really taken hold. Some of the numbers I gave you earlier, very, very similar to that. It comes with Office 365, and there's other pieces as well. There's a lot of pre-built stuff to it. It's not always low code, so it's a little more difficult in our experience to code with. Not to say it's difficult, but it's a little more difficult, a little more used to it. Next slide, please. ServiceNow, another great one. Enterprise ready, obviously, right? Easy to cross-sell, especially if you're a ServiceNow customer. Highly customizable. You can really build, apps centered around ServiceNow. It's really nice. Again, a leader, high growth rate. The downfall is it's expensive. If you're already a ServiceNow customer, obviously a shoe-in, that kind of thing, but a very good platform to build on as well. Move next slide, please.
All right, looks like we're ready for our first interactive polling question. So go ahead and you can either scan that QR code at the top of the screen, or you can go to menti.com and type in that code. Go ahead and cast your votes and submit as many answers as you want. We'll give everyone about 30 seconds to a minute to do so.
All right. So this is nice to see. I like to see what's out here. So, Mendix and ServiceNow are high. Powerapps, Powerapps and other. And hopefully we can find out what the other is. Oh, Powerapps is growing. as well. So it's nice to see the graph. Looks like you know, we're kind of in that ballpark as well. So it's good to see that. Next slide, please. If are we closed? Did we close this, Shamiza?
Yeah, let's go ahead and
yeah.
keep it going. Yep.
All right, so thanks for that, guys. I like those interactive charts and graphs. Gives me a little break from talking, but also it's nice to see some responses out there, some interactivity. So on Prolifics Innovation Center, probably one of the biggest things that we have internal to Prolifics is an innovation center. What that is a place for a customer and us to come together and say, okay, what do you have? What issues are you having? Well, you know what, we have the certain problem with an application. We'd like to get this built quick, whatever it might be. So this innovation center gives that sandbox creativity. It's kind of a place for you to kick up your feet and kind of open up your mindset and build something around design type thinking, right? Challenge assumptions, that kind of thing. Maybe take in some new technology and co-create together. Again, that innovative take ownership approach. And so that innovation center takes those business challenges with the customer, and we build together to create something that's tangible and that they can take forward, either say, yeah, this is right for us or it isn't. And this is kind of what we did with, this is what we did with our low code bake off. We took those 3 platforms, we created some use cases internal, which is what we needed. We had an internal business issue, and we built in parallel across those 3 platforms an application. And through this innovation center, which again, can't say enough about it. It's really a competitive edge in the industry. Next slide, please. All right, so that brings us to the important part of this whole talk, is the low code bake off. And I'm going to introduce you to my my counterpart, Amherst Maldonado. Hey, Amherst, can you take us through the low code bake off, what we did?
Yes, I sure can. Thank you, Craig. And hi, everyone. So this was a very interesting project that we did here at Prolifics. So for our low-code bake-off, we had 3 teams, all work in parallel, as Craig said, and we built an identical application. The application was an onboarding application that we added to our HR portal to help our HR team folks with their onboarding new candidates, and that was really a big one here. Just totally streamlining things. Things that we lacked, we added on with these leveraging these platforms. So we had 3 teams here, as Craig said, our Mendix, ServiceNow, and our Powerapps teams. Each team were, I would say, mediocre skilled in each individual platform. We spent about 8 to 10 hours a week building this application. We met weekly just to see, get feedback from them and see what their progress was like. We also invited subject matter experts to these meetings again to kind of get feedback from them, to make sure that we were on par. And I would say at the end of the project, I would say it took about a couple of months or so. Again, the folks were working 8 to 10 hours a week on this application, as opposed to doing what they normally do. Now, the other requirement for this bake-off was this application had to run in a web browser as well as be able to run in a mobile device, and they were on point with that particular requirement. The whole reason for this bake-off was, of course, to understand what it took to build a real application using a low-code platform, as well as to compare and contrast these 3 platforms: the Mendix platform, ServiceNow, and Powerapps platform. Next slide, please. Let me spend a few minutes talking about the application, the requirements that were provided to the team. So I've got about 10 user stories that we devised for the team members. And on the left, notice on the left would be the 3 types of users that would be using the application: a new employee, an HR team member, as well as an IT team member. Now, for the new employee should be able to upload, delete, onboarding documents. Now, onboarding documents could be scans of their driver's license, their passports, certifications, and so on. A new employee should be able to view the status of these onboarding documents that they've uploaded to make sure that they know when these documents will be verified and who will be verifying these documents. The new employee should also be able to view the status of their laptop setup, as well as internal application access setup. Now, for your HR team member, all right, they should be able to create profiles for each of these candidates. Once a profile is created, an email will be triggered to the new employee. The HR team should be able to upload, download, delete, preview these onboarding documents, and of course, be able to approve and reject these documents. They should also be able to view status of their laptop access, internal app access, and be able to generate reports based on candidates that were being onboarded. The last user would be an IT team member. They would be able to view the status of documents that were being verified, as well as update laptop and internal application access. Next screen, please. Yes. So let's look at the screens that each team came up with. All right, the first screen is that you're looking at a screenshot from our Mendex team. Very slick looking screen. On the left, you see the login screen that users could log in. On the top right is a screen where documents were uploaded, deleted, previewed, and so on. And the bottom screen is a list of all the candidates that were currently being onboarded in the system. Next screen, please. Our ServiceNow team. Screenshots from the ServiceNow application, very slick looking, equally sharp. Also, you've got login screen. Screen to the right is similar. This is where the onboarding documents were being uploaded, downloaded, and so on. And the bottom screen is where you'll see the list of candidates that are being onboarded. Next screen, please. Now, this is a screenshot from our Powerapps application. Now, I did say earlier that one of the requirements was that this onboarding document application should be able to run the web browser as well as in a mobile device. So I chose to actually show screenshots from the Powerapps mobile device application. You've got, in fact, they knocked this out very quickly. The login screen, as well as the screens where you were able to upload documents and so on. Next screen, please. Go ahead, Shamisa.
All right, looks like we are on to our second Menti question. So go ahead and either scan the QR code right at the top of the screen or go to menti.com and use the code provided. We'll go ahead and give everyone about a minute to submit their questions or answers.
Looks like we're having a little bit of problems with the screen, but we do have 67% so far have said it takes 70%. And 50%, or now it's 50-50. We have 50% saying it takes 50%, and we have 50% saying it takes 70%. So,
what do you think, Craig? Pretty close?
I think it's pretty close. Yeah, it's not bad at all. Perhaps it'll align with our graphs.
Yes.
And just a reminder, if you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A. All right, I'll turn it back over to you guys.
All right. Some interesting results here. So at the conclusion of the bake-off, we asked all team members to answer some questions to kind of rate the platform they worked on, and we gave them several categories to rate the platform on. And the categories ran from platform performance to ease of use, all the way down to overall impression. And on the Y chart, you'll see the rating scale was from 0 to 10. And I would say we had some interesting results. Notice for the debugging and profile, all three platforms scored really high, which is basically how well the platform helps you debug an application, troubleshoot bottlenecks, and so on. Another category that all three teams scored very high was in the team collaboration, past the middle, which basically is how well the platform, help the team work together, track sprints and tasks.
And so, Emrith, this is really nice, and this is a culmination of our developers, our teams, and their responses to how they would use it. Is that correct?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Right.
And these again, team members, medium skilled in each platform.
Yeah. So you can't really go wrong with any of these platforms, quite frankly. They're all pretty high. And it's going to come down to, what exactly you're doing and what kind of environment you're in, I'm assuming.
I agree, definitely. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. All right, interesting chart to share with y'all. So this chart depicts the number of weeks it would take a medium complexity application with 4 to 6 user stories to go live. Right. So the statistics from this bar chart came from our very experienced Prolifics consultants who've been building applications on traditional platforms. So the first bar chart is web applications. It would take about 15 weeks to build a web application, to go live with a web application using a traditional platform. The next one over would take 12 weeks to build the same type of application for a native mobile application. Now, the middle is a microservice. Of course, you're talking about building standalone services. Medium complexity would take about 10 weeks. And for native desktop developers, it would take about 14 weeks to build an identical type of application. And drum roll, for low-code platforms, right? So our low-code team came in and, taking 4 weeks to build a medium complexity application with 4 to 6 user stories. 4 weeks was the result.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing.
Yes, definitely. You can go to the next slide.
All right, we're almost out of time. So just from a low code use case perspective, these are some of the competitive edge low code use cases that we see in the industry and we've come across personally as developers, right? So managing applications, business processing, managing applications, right? HR applications, as you just saw, it's a really good one, really good fit. It fits into that square itself. Managing database tables, perhaps, building something quick and easy to get to, an excellent use case. Omni-channel platforms, microservices-based applications means you can connect to microservices. So if your development environment, you're modernizing your environment, you're developing a microservices type backend, middleware, that kind of thing. Nice to bolt on top of it is a low-code platform, get you there quicker. And then, of course, migrating old applications, maybe an old VB6 application to the new modern way, is another good use case for low-code. And I think that brings us to the end. Yeah, questions, please publish them. We'd be happy to answer them. Shamiza, it's up to now. Back to you.
I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but please do reach out to Craig or Amrith with any additional questions or to set up a one-on-one meeting. So right there, you've got Craig and Amrith's email addresses. Don't be shy. Go ahead and reach out to them.
Screenshot.
And yeah, and if there are no any other questions, everyone enjoy the rest of your day.